FortiClient EMS provides the infrastructure to install and manage FortiClient software on endpoints. FortiClient protects endpoints from viruses, threats, and risks. In this video, we will provide a brief introduction of setting up your FortiClient EMS. For full configuration details, please refer to the administrator's guide. Let's look at licensing first. If you are using on-premise EMS, you will need to log into your EMS and sync up FortiClient licenses by using your FortiCare credentials. For external devices or devices that may leave the internal network, it is better to connect to EMS using a fully qualified domain name. FQDN is preferable for the following reasons. It's easy to migrate EMS to a different IP address. It also makes it easy to migrate to a different EMS instance, and is flexible to dynamically resolve the FQDN. FortiClient EMS requires an SSL certificate. SSL certificate is the server certificate that is used by EMS for HTTPS access and fabric connectivity to the EMS server. You can add an SSL certificate to FortiClient EMS by either configuring an automated SSL certificate or manually uploading one. Please do not confuse SSL certificate with the EMS CA certificate. EMS has a default CA certificate that is used to secure connection between EMS and FortiClients. When remote HTTPS is disabled, administrators can only log into FortiClient EMS on the server. When remote HTTPS is enabled, administrators use a browser HTTPS connection to log into FortiClient EMS using a hostname. Predefined hostname displays hostname of the server on which FortiClient EMS is installed. You can also define a custom hostname. Optionally, you can enter management IP and port for fabric connector configuration, in case FortiGate connects indirectly. You can set up SMTP server to enable alerts for FortiClient EMS or endpoint events. When an alert is triggered, EMS sends an email notification. Next, we'll look at configuring user accounts. You can configure users to have administrator access to FortiClient EMS by adding EMS users, local Windows users, or LDAP users. You can define role-based access for each user and customize what access permission each user gets. Each admin role can include permissions from three categories: endpoint permissions, policy permissions, and settings permissions. Now let's look at adding Windows, Mac, and Linux endpoints. FortiClient EMS needs to determine which devices to manage. For Windows, macOS, and Linux endpoints, device information can come from Active Directory server or manual FortiClient connection. FortiClient EMS can also manage Google Chromebooks. For that, you will need to add a Google domain. Chromebook device information comes from the Google Admin Console. You can use EMS to deploy FortiClient software on endpoints. EMS can be deployed on two types of endpoints: domain endpoints and workgroup endpoints. Domain endpoints support fresh deployment and upgrades, while workgroup only support upgrades. In the domain scenario, you will need to prepare Active Directory server, add the Active Directory server to EMS, and create a profile before applying deployment package. For the workgroup scenario, you only need to create a profile before applying deployment package. Now let's look at adding a profile. The profile defines the configuration for FortiClient software on endpoints. You can use the default profile and customize it as necessary or create a new profile. Next, create a deployment package with the profile. Deployment packages include the FortiClient installer as well as the list of the FortiClient features to be installed on the endpoints. You can also configure invitation codes to email to end users. After installing FortiClient, end users can enter the invitation codes to connect FortiClient to EMS. After you deploy the endpoints, you can view the list of the endpoints in the endpoint pane. You can also view details about each endpoint or use filters to access endpoints with specific qualities. You can manage endpoints from the endpoint pane. Here you can run an antivirus scan, vulnerability scan, patch detected vulnerabilities, quarantine endpoints, and more. You can use group assignment rules to automatically place newly connected endpoints into custom groups based on their installer ID, IP address, or operating system. This way, profiles are automatically applied to the endpoints based on the endpoint group assignment. You can also use the Schedule Run and Run Rules Now buttons to check and reassign endpoints to different groups in case endpoint IP address or logged-in Active Directory user changes. You can also create Zero Trust tagging rules for Windows, macOS, and Linux endpoints based on their operating system versions, logged-in domains, running processes, and other criteria. EMS uses the rules to dynamically group endpoints. Dynamic endpoint groups can be used in dynamic FortiOS policy rules. Endpoint policies help assign endpoint profiles to groups of endpoints. The endpoint policy page provides a comprehensive summary of which endpoint profiles are applied to which endpoint groups. EMS dashboard uses widgets to show summary information about the system and the endpoints. System information shows the name of the computer where you installed FortiClient EMS, version number, options to backup and restore the database, and more. License information widget shows serial number for FortiClient EMS, FortiCloud account, and licensing information. Endpoint management chart indicates how many endpoints are connected, while endpoint connection shows the number of online and offline endpoints. You can also add and remove widgets to create your own customized view, like this chart showing the top 3 endpoints with vulnerability alerts. In addition, you can drill down information to view specific details. And this concludes our video. For full configuration details, please refer to the EMS Administrator's Guide.